Excellent. Welcome to the TADSummit podcast. We have a fun one. This is global. So I'm across here in the US. We have Jack, a newbie to the TADSummit podcast in Melbourne, and of course the regular Bodan. Now you're in Slovenia at the moment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Hi.
So I'm going to hand over straight to Bodan so if you could do the intro to Jack, and then what we're going to talk about.
Uh, Hi, Jack. Hi, Alan. So I want to introduce my good friend from Australia, Jack, and I'm interested you to hear his experience about uh, all this stuff with hacking the phones,
Mhm.
devices, and
Yep.
what's going on inside. Not just cybersecurity or information security, but also, let's say, non-formal activities
Mm.
and what they are looking on the market, especially from young um,
Mm.
persons
Mhm.
interested in this stuff.
Mhm.
What do they offer? And Jack is exactly the right person that they already asked it to work for them. I mean, cyber criminals.
Yeah.
They offered him some activities and extremely high payments,
Yeah.
even in the same cryptocurrency. So I will not share any names again, but I believe that Jack will share with us something special today. So
Excellent.
now, Jack, your time,
Yeah,
please.
so that was a super warm introduction, and thank you so much for all that. I do greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Alan and
You're welcome.
Bodon, for inviting me onto the podcast. It's a really special privilege for me today. So I greatly appreciate it. Now, just to piggyback a little bit onto what was said already. So hi, I'm Jack. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm a mobile security researcher. But my main specialty within mobile security is anti-forensics and counterintelligence.
Mm.
So it's kind of a blend and fusion of not just the classic digital forensic investigation between this is a mobile device, let's extract it, but
Yeah.
how do we actively stop people from getting data on that device, and what is the use case of that?
Mhm.
But then I also have digital forensic experience as well to balance that out, because there's no point in building something to defend if you don't know how to extract the information from that.
Exactly.
Now, in my other life, I did do a podcast where I spoke to different cybercrime groups to understand one key question, which was, why do you do what you do? What makes you tick? And I did speak with a lot of fantastic people, like number 26 on the FBI's most wanted list, Maxim Yakobets, until I was doxxed. But, that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, like, what kind of questions would you have for me just on the overall state of the industry, or where do you want to take this?
Yeah. So Jack, we are interested to know like all this stuff with SMS going on with phishing, and I personally can say that for the last 10 years, if I compare nowadays, I see only increase of this phishing, smishing. They masking this traffic, they generate this traffic worldwide, and they trying to attack all devices connected to the internet. So I mean that IoT, Internet of Things, everything, not just smartphones or laptops, everything that connected to the internet, all IoT devices, they are targets.
Hmm.
And I like what you sent me like last year, I think. Like I love hacking devices. So tell us, please, Jack, how do you hack devices and why?
Yeah, so I guess that's a two-part question. So I'll answer the first one, which is kind of SMS security.
Yeah.
So really, inherently, SMS and MMS isn't built for security. That's actually not the primary function. It was
Yeah.
just how do we make it work? And then security is more so an afterthought. Now, there is encryption in transit between the telecommunications providers,
Yeah.
but between devices that can be captured.
Yeah.
Because inherently, if you send a message like hi to one device and another device, then the mediary between them can capture the traffic and then send it to whoever wants it. And that's pretty much the principles behind information disclosure requests for something like law enforcement and government and intelligence.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why we see a lot of increase is in attacks between probably about 2005, I'd say, is when it really started to ramp up quite a lot. And we see this as naturally, it's a game of economics, right? Because cyber criminals inherently are super lazy. They are not going to be developing the next generation of malware or some cyber weapon to steal your grandmother's password.
Yeah.
It's very simply the low-hanging fruit. And if you do that enough times, eventually you're going to get lucky.
Yeah.
Now, I think what's interesting is not only why it's happening in frequency, but also what's being done to counter that. See, we're seeing a lot of cybersecurity agencies like the NSA, GCHQ, including the Australian Signals Directorate.
Yeah.
There's been a heck of a lot of increases in about the past 5 years in general awareness to public understanding with not only scams, but also what do you do if you get them.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest issue isn't most of the scams themselves. It's the ways in which financing occurs. Because I will always say that the issue isn't the money itself. It's how do the criminals get the money? And they get it due to, quite simply, it's easier to transfer from victims who maybe aren't too tech savvy or aren't aware of really what a scam is.
Yeah.
And so it's much easier to go about that path.
Gotcha.
But onto the mobile security side. So there's really a holistic approach that I take within mobile security. So I do build Android phones, but also Linux phones as well. And I think it really depends on what you would want from a device itself, because it's really about understanding your threat model and what attacks are you realistically going to face. Like if you're Edward Snowden, probably don't have a phone, but if you're just an everyday person, download Signal, encrypt the phone, have a YubiKey or some type of hardware-based authentication code or keys, and don't download any sketchy links.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the best advice that anybody is going to give you.
Saying about how easy it's to go to the darknet.
A lot of people have a misnomer that the dark web is some like grand bazaar in a mystical part of the world. It's really just it's a worse version of a Reddit board mixed with eBay.
Yeah.
And that's 100% true.
I agree. That's the model I have.
Yep. And the best part is that you have three types of people who go onto the dark web. You have people seeking illicit drugs or services, right? And those people are going to use it the most.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have people like security researchers and people who they would then have to track them down. So it'd be like law enforcement. Lastly, it's the people who like to have fun, like to explore, like to use it as a way to escape in whatever manner that they would like to, right?
Gotcha.
And take my podcast, for example. Yes, I was speaking to cyber criminals, people who made ransomware, people who did a lot of illicit stuff. Now, I never agreed with what they did. However, I gave a very healthy level of respect to their skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that if you give people that respect, they're generally going to give it back to you. Now, you don't have to agree with them, but respect goes both ways.
Yes.
And I think it's helped me extremely well with not only my communication style, but also the brand in which I built to certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a very valuable lesson that I believe a lot of people should learn when interacting over the dark web or just communication in general.
Absolutely.
Because it brings an interesting side to human behavior.
Yeah. And I was actually, while you were off the bridge for a second, point you made was, clicking on sketchy links. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But there's, in the telecoms industry, there's this new platform standard that's rolling out called RCS, Rich Communications Services or Suite. And it's quite a consolidation because it enables, when you get a URL on an SMS, it's there, it's written. And I've seen them. It's like, Easy Pass, and it's E-Z Pass, and I'm like, that's not right. You can see the scam, but the problem with RCS is it could be a hot link. It's got all the branding around that looks like Easy Pass, and then the dodgy, the sketchy link I can't even see. It's just a button, or it's a table, or something. So we're entering potentially a situation where it's becoming easier to click on those sketchy links. So I think it's a very important point you raise.
Yeah, and I think there's really two sides to that coin, right? Well, there's many more depending on how you look at it, but simplistically, the two sides are this. It's always going to be a constant battle between how smart the defenders are and how crafty the attackers are. And not just that, but I believe on a technological standpoint, they're actually not that sophisticated when you look at countermeasures to defeat them. Because quite simply, you can use something like a sandbox, or I'm building this at the moment with my device. I'm currently building an environment in which any link will automatically detonate in a small virtual machine. And so if anything sketchy happens, it'll report it back and then say, hey, this is sketchy, don't do it.
Yeah. Cool.
And it's the same principle as what VirusTotal does and a lot of the open source components. It's just for mobile, it's not as efficient because nobody really wants to build it for mobile because there's so many signatures that you have to take into account. In terms of the sandbox environment, it's just one of the 16 ways that my phone has better security. So I'm making a holistic approach to the security model in Android, but I'm pairing it with a project called Graphene OS.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Yes, I have.
But the biggest issue that I find with Graphene OS that not a lot of people talk about is the signing keys during updates.
Yeah.
Because it's inherently on their own servers, and there's a couple vulnerabilities in the underlying operating system with how they manage the encryption of the memory during boot.
Gotcha.
And I think if you have the device, that can be taken advantage of, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I then find the vulnerabilities and I would then make it more secure on the basis of that. It's a fantastic project in and of itself, but there's some security features where, to my threat model, it isn't appropriate.
Understood.
And I think from the malware perspective, that is an interesting thing. But another thing would be the Bluetooth and just the radio waves on the device. And I think that's a unique thing as well.
Oh,
Because if you root the device, you
yep,
can build a custom kernel and then flash it for Pixel devices, which is what I have. This is a Pixel 6 Pro.
yep.
And if you then build a secure kernel, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can set mandatory Wi-Fi traffic to go to the toy network or I2P. Or if you even want and you're so inclined, you can desolder them and then put in a low raw transmitter and then transmit that way,
Oh,
which is completely insane. But
yeah.
it is possible in my research, and actually, it's quite cheap.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know from Jack that he identified they are selling in some Telegram groups all that stuff super cheap. Like you
oh
can
yeah,
buy everything you want, like less than $100.
yeah.
Wow.
So I've been approached by a handful of not just crime groups, but security services and what have you
Yeah.
for my counterintelligence technology. And I think the biggest issue is it's so different, right? Because so many people are thinking, hey, we just need digital forensics, or we need to understand, operational security, but or OSINT. But very few people understand that OSINT and counterintelligence go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because like one of my favorite books, which is On War by Karl von Clausewitz. I'm not sure if you're familiar
No.
with it. It was made in 1831.
Okay.
And basically, it's a book on not just military strategy itself, but the application of energy, time, and resources
Oh,
in a conflict or a battle. And I think it's a very unique lesson that one can apply to not just security, but their life in general, right? Because certain things are not worth fighting. But when you're distracted with this, you're going to be distracted on something else because that's
yeah.
just the nature of attention.
Yep. Exactly. Yes.
Within
Go for it.
the telecommunications industry, what would you say is the biggest threat? Is it data loss or is it fines? Because I think that's a very unique balance that a lot of companies have just decided, I want to pick the fines over the data loss.
I look at it from the end customer, so the users of the mobile phones, of the mobile phone networks, the citizen, because
Yeah.
they're all paying for this in the US. People that are, 65 and over, because of the rampant, SMS spam, the rampant robocalling, over 41% of them don't answer the phone because they're too scared. So that's a major social impact because these are baby boomers. These are people that always answer the phone. They use the phone, their voice for communicating with people, families, friends, and it's become a tool that they're scared to use. And we see such massive losses, the theft. Now, yes, there's the data, and I agree that in aggregate is an issue, but people are losing their life savings, through basically whether it be email, whether it's spam, whether it's a robocall, and especially with boomers and a call, people can be convinced, when they're talking to somebody to give away, information that enables a lot of loss. And there, we were talking actually before the call about this week. T-Mobile settled. It was a $33 million settlement for the theft of. It was a SIM swap. So it was a T-Mobile employee basically transferred a target. So there's somebody they knew that had, a lot of Bitcoin, and basically got their number transferred onto a device that was in the control of the scammer. And this was like back in 2020. And this person, had a lot of Bitcoin, thousands of Bitcoin. So they ended up losing about $38 million. Now, they've been T-Mobile is trying to cover up what happened, cover up the lack of security, how the hackers got into it. But in the end, that's all now public, and this was only this week. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to open the floodgates, because lawyers are going to look at this and going, okay, anybody that has lost money through SIM swap, that's a target. So we're now going to see that explode. So I think, it's a scary time from both a social, but also in terms of, people have lost their life savings and they've committed suicide. So the social costs are massive. In fact, there was the year before, it was again another scam, and the the elderly person was having to, some money was basically being paid, and it was a Uber driver that was coming to pick it up. It wasn't the scammer, and of course you can imagine the upset state, and they shot the Uber driver and killed them. And they were just basically doing a task, which was, go to this address and ask this person, and they'll give you a package. That was it. So I just look at the financial impact on the citizens of, all countries. This is where the massive toll is. The data loss, yeah, but let's face it, people give away their data so readily to Google, to Microsoft, to Meta, you name it. So even though I value my privacy and my data, and I'm sure because of the industry and the work that you do, you highly value and protect your information.
Well, yes and no, right? Because it. So that's actually a project that I'm working on now, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with artificial intelligence and all that sweeping pretty much every industry.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue with artificial intelligence is fundamentally it knows only as much as you feed it.
Yes.
And there's an inherent lack of trust and safety. But the issue is, if you don't have enough data to train it, it's then going to fit a narrow box of, hey, this is what society and people are like. We're going to fit everyone who is an edge case into that.
Yeah.
And
exactly. Yeah.
the best data sets are defined with the edge cases, because that's where you get the most amount of perspective from.
Yeah.
And I think the same principle can be applied with data itself and the application of it, right? Because so many people think that if Google knows my location history, they're going to send an assassin or something. And it's like, not really, but it is definitely interesting to think about how data collection has been different. And I think with artificial intelligence now, information and the cost of attacks are dirt cheap.
Yeah.
But the biggest increase in just the overall information landscape is wisdom. I think wisdom is now invaluable. And, you get wisdom from experience or the application of doing something and it doesn't work, or it worked.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, AI can't give that.
No.
They can give understanding and a little bit of perspective around an issue in defined terms and parameters. But I think long term, it's a very difficult bet to see where the industry is going to go, especially within relation to data itself.
Yep.
I mean, that's just going to, it's a very interesting time. And I think we genuinely, as a species, have about 10 to 15 years before the world changes forever, right? It's the singularity event, if you will. And I
Yeah.
hate that word,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, though, right? Because
Jack, I
Yes.
think
it's
it will
like
be faster. It will be like in the next 3 years.
100%.
It will be much faster. I want to add something to Alan that Australia, it's like one country, same what happened and continue happening with the United States of America. So Australia, it's like country in the top of targets for the cyber criminals and
Yes.
scammers, and they are trying to attack all families because in Australia, like average life savings, it's more than 200,000 USD for one
Oh,
family.
wow.
That's why they know very well they're using the same AI,
Mm-hmm.
and they develop new techniques for social engineering. So it's not only about sending SMS, like masking them A2P application to person from any well-known brands. Same attacks to all kinds of messengers,
Yeah.
like the same WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, everything. And another several examples that I know now. Daily, those scammers, they spend more than 100,000 USD just for sending spam, and they actually generated this spam, masking it for marketing traffic. Uh,
Wow.
so let's say they're looking for the same Australia
Yeah.
and interested to send these SMSs. They have on the market like hundreds of carriers offering them A2P routes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a funny fact that they can use not just direct routes from mobile operators, but very often they using SIM boxes.
Yeah.
Again, they didn't disappear. And it's very easy to buy that hardware, that SIM box, input inside any SIM cards you like, you
Yeah.
want.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they now developing even their own applications, and they are paying local people for receiving some SMSs. So imagine that someone inside the Australia or any other country,
Mm-hmm.
like even in the same Nigeria. So they receive SMS, and someone who developed that application, like paying
Mm-hmm.
for every SMS that they confirm they receive or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And they call it like um, a local handset testing tool or something like that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you don't need to use a tool from the market. You use local people
Yeah.
in every
Exactly.
country.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
As a result, we have more and more victims, and they are losing their life savings. Families, they are bankrupt,
Yeah.
they broken, destroyed totally, just because they received some messages from fraudsters, scammers. Not always adult people click the links. Very often, kids,
Yeah.
they're watching some videos on YouTube, they are playing games,
Yeah.
SMS arrive, they click that
Yeah.
button,
Just
and
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And calls, all those robocalls, call centers, they didn't disappear. They're very rich now. They continue their business.
Now, is that 100,000 they're spending for the spam messages like per month, per
It's
week,
just daily for
daily?
one destination only. Let's say today target is Mexico or Brazil.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
they
Yeah,
send like 20 millions plus SMSs to that destination. So you can imagine how much they extract from
yeah,
them if they ready to send like 100,000 USD for
yeah.
20 million SMSs
Oh
or
yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean, just
as we mentioned previously, they're going to get more clicks because the data
yeah.
can be presented in a way that masks the URL. It's not just a kid just brushing it away. So again, I can see how having that sandbox becomes critical because
Yeah.
you have to test it. You can't rely on any other party than on your device. It's tested to say it's like red alert, don't touch it. It's like
Yeah.
well, it's automatic in terms of that message, and everything associated with it is deleted and then blocked. So you never have to be touched from that.
And also one question, very interesting question to mobile operators. How it's still possible to use SS7 routes for sending SMSs? So guys, you are offering all those SS7 routes like global titles,
Yes.
GP, uh, somebody offering as a product.
Yes.
So you have like direct zero hops, you have partners directs. So all those routes for OTP, like one-time password. You have like SIM boxes, we discuss it, right?
Hmm.
Illegal stuff with this hardware.
Yeah.
But what about SS7? Why do you offer them? It's not for sending and receiving traffic. It's not even for the testing, but you are offering, and the market overload it with this. Very often they use this connectivity for sending exactly phishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Tim Biddle from Cinch earlier, right at the start of this week, did a piece on global titles. So that's actually, I'll reference that when I do the summary of this
Yeah, I
blog.
saw that post, and he did a great job.
Yeah,
He shared like a list, and they must be responsible. It's not the time that in the past that they can say like it's not our responsibility. No, it's you.
exactly.
And if people
Yeah.
they will not forget. They will remember that something happened
Yep.
because they use your connectivity.
Yeah.
So each owner of SIM card, it's your customer.
Yes.
We are paying you for your services. You must protect your networks.
Correct. Yeah.
So this is the main focus, the main question, what we discuss in those podcasts. Like mobile operators, you are like the most important enterprises that managing like millions of subscribers, opt-in subscribers. You have all our personal data.
Yes.
Like according to the GDPR, please protect.
Yeah, no, that's very good. But we're coming up on time, so what I'd like to ask, because has been really good, Jack. I'm grateful for the time you've been able to share.
It's all good.
What's from your perspective, what's the message you would like to leave to our audience? So, our audience is mainly developer centric, mainly sort of telecom centric. So, to that community, given the threats, given the issues, what's the one thing you'd like them to worry about, or know, or to think more about?
That's a very good question. And I think it's two important things because they go hand in hand as well. I think knowing your threat model and to develop for that is vital.
Gotcha.
And secondly, learn counterintelligence, because if you can stop the enemy or the attacker from even understanding where you are to begin with,
Understood.
you then alleviate the threat before it becomes a threat.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
that's the ethos for
Yeah.
what I build my practice on and what I tell other people to.
Excellent. No, that's really good advice, because it is within the telecom industry evolving quite rapidly. Even at Mobile World Congress, where you were, Bodan, there's a big push to network APIs.
Yeah.
That has a range of issues as well. And there's a whole IP-based model, because within a mobile network, everything's data connected as well. You mentioned, with LoRa, with Wi-Fi, they're IP endpoints as well. They're not just mobile network endpoints. So there's multiple, threats, across those different methods of connectivity. So that's great. I think that really is a nice place to leave this. So again, thank you so much. Sorry for waking you up earlier than I thought, given it was, it's coming up to 8 a.m. now in Melbourne. But again, thank you so much.
That's all good.
Thank you.